becoming unforgettable, becoming something that people identify with you without your name into it. And so she told me then, continuing the story, so she told me that when I walk out on the streets, I'm an introvert, so when I walk out on the streets, this is how people recognize me, this is how they see me, and they want to start those first few conversations with me just when I walk out of the door.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Systems with Laura, the podcast where we decode the structures behind successful entrepreneurs, freelancers, and business owners. This episode of Systems with Laura is brought to you by Proprium, business workflow and automation agency. If you're building a service-based business and you're overwhelmed by operations, automations, or choosing the right tools, this is exactly what Proprium helps with. Proprium builds systems that help you save time, reduce repetitive work, and scale without chaos. Learn more at proprium.agency. I'm your host, Laura, founder of Proprium and Laura's Learning Lab, and today's guest is a powerhouse in the LinkedIn content creation world. If you've ever wondered how top tier freelancers build sustainable businesses, manage hundreds of clients' projects, and still show up consistently on platforms such as LinkedIn, this episode is for you. Joining me today is Vagisha Arora, a PR strategist and LinkedIn personal branding expert. Over the last 8+ years, she has built a 51K following with 5,000 plus posts, spoken on global stages like Digimarcon, edited a best-selling book, and worked with industry leaders, including a business partner at Grant Cardone. She helps experts like you turn into the go-to authority in your industry so you get featured, noticed, and trusted where it matters. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Vagisha. Nice to talk to you.
Hi, Laura. It's really a pleasure to be here today and doing this wonderful episode for you.
Thank you.
Uh, this wonder, doing this wonderful episode with you. Thanks for the honor.
Thank you so much. And I love how we connected, and I love the conversation that we had when we met. So I am really, really excited about this one. And I know that you have so many practical tips and that you want to share them with the audience. But I want us to go back to the start because, in my eyes at least, you had this dream job at Accenture, which is Google basically. And your journey started very, I would say, traditionally looking because that's the dream, finish university, go to the corporate world, and then what happened then? How did you go from that to here? And I would say that you are much happier and enjoying life even more. So what was your journey from a corporate job to having your own business and influencing on LinkedIn with 50,000 plus followers?
I would say, Laura, it didn't start with that aim where I wanted to build a personal brand. And I guess that is the only thing, that has made all the difference because I just wanted to start on a platform where I could share my experiences while I was working in my dream job, Google. My end client was actually Google, but my I was hired by Accenture for one of the projects, and while I was living my dream life and also doing part-time freelancing, I just felt that I needed a platform where I could find my tribe. And LinkedIn is always seen as a job searching platform, and that is when I decided that I will become more active on this platform because it could be just help me get the right opportunities, maybe in terms of finding my next job. And it's really silly that how my search for next job ended because I could build my visibility and authority within 2 years of me using LinkedIn more rigorously. And it just started with, not building a personal brand, because personal brand as a term didn't even exist at that time. But I was just intrigued by how I could share my experiences with a larger audience, how I could connect with people globally. And I would say the sea of opportunities that awaited me with every post I did. And I guess that has stayed with me till date. And it was not a journey I planned, but I am grateful to God to have found something I really love doing now.
It really feels like you stumbled upon LinkedIn in a fully different way than people usually do. Just like you said, people look at it as a job searching platform. Nowadays, it's more of a networking platform because I think it's taking its full swing only now after so many years of it existing. But you had this, I would even say, pure intention. So you were not thinking about it from the usual personal brand perspective that most people kind of start with. So your goal was to find people who think like you, and I think that was the first step in getting the followers and to becoming a top voice for this. How did that journey start? How did you start posting? What did you start doing on the platform?
So, yeah, so it's funny because one of my posts, in my initial days was, how every Sunday I want to quit my job, and every Monday I find myself, sitting in my office cubicle, just not being able to quit where I felt I don't belong. And this post got me amazing engagements, and many people could resonate with what I had to say. So I would say maybe these were the moments that kept me motivated. Definitely, you struggle a lot when it comes to engagements when you are starting on a new platform, and same happened with me. First 6 to 10 months, you could say approximately, I hardly got any engagements on what I was writing. But as I said, it didn't start with that process where I wanted to build a personal brand. It just started with providing all the value I could through all the freelancing experiences I was having with clients. Whatever I had to share, about narrative building, about positioning, because I was doing a lot of content at that time and a lot of marketing as well. So that was the starting point for me, just sharing with without any gatekeeping, I would say. And I think that has been the first step to building your target audience well, because to me personal branding is a byproduct of all the value you can provide to your audience. And if you are able to do that, that is the time when people want to talk to you, they want to collaborate with you, they want to work with you, and they even trust you as someone who could take up their work in a much better way, even if thousands of people are doing it. So to me branding is all about establishing that level of credibility, trust with the quality of work you deliver. And it doesn't just stop there, it doesn't just stop there, it's more than that. It's also about being in that top 1% bracket, where people when think of you as someone who is unforgettable, creating that impression where you are unforgettable, unmemorable whenever they need your services. So yeah.
I think that can be felt even through a post because you can smell a sales post, miles away. Nowadays, the Chat GPT post and all of that, but I feel like this unselfish helpfulness to people with real advice basically is kind of crucial. And you did that over 5,000 times with your posts. So how do you get ideas? What is your system behind all of this?
Uh, I would say that there is no system to it, Laura. I know it's crazy for many, that you don't have a content calendar that you book through. No, I don't have one. I just plan my newsletters well, but apart from that, whatever posts you would see are, usually creation of 15, 20, 25 minutes of work. And because I'm not following a system where I want to post for the sake of it. There is a difference when you're posting for the sake of it and when you are writing from heart. And I've seen that whenever I'm writing from my heart, something that is very very true to my personality, that gets more engagements versus something which is very much well thought of, something which is very much worked upon, because I think that is the kind of authenticity which people relate to. And it's it's very easy for people to these days identify the difference between real and real. So whenever you are actually you know writing something which you resonate with, you find your tribe of people who can actually resonate with it even better. So that system has stayed with me. I just write what I feel like, and it could happen sometimes 5 times a week, sometimes maybe just 2 times a week. And there is no strategy to it.
If today's episode makes you realize your tools are not supporting your business, Proprium builds systems in tools like Airtable, SmartSuite, ClickUp, HubSpot, Make, Zapier, and many more. Proprium's team maps your processes, builds your workflows, automates your tasks, and trains your team. If you want systems done properly, visit proprium.agency. I think that's also a strategy. Basically, follow your heart, right? That's basically your system to be authentic with it and to be attuned to the needs of your audience. So let's go a step back before we go into concrete advice. Let's go for to the message to the people that are still trying to decide: do they use LinkedIn? Do they not use LinkedIn? Will they seem foolish? Will people mock them? How will they do that and all of that? I tried to dip my toe over the years and post here and there, and I was so shy about it. And this year I went full in, and I just started, 2 or 3 months ago, basically doing this daily and engaging. And what I can say is I don't have this huge results yet, but it started to be fun for some reason. And it feels very validating when you encounter people that actually leave a thoughtful comment, connect with you, you start conversations, and you meet people from all over the world, and certain relationships can happen. So, how does it look like in the beginning, and how do you make that leap into content creation on LinkedIn? What would you say to somebody who's trying to decide?
I would say that, come from a place of vulnerability. What happens sometimes is we are trying to be perfectionists in what we write, and just getting caught in that loop of being a perfectionist. Sometimes things get procrastinated. And very honestly, with the kind of people I work with, they are very hesitant to trying something new, because they feel it would take a lot of their time. But it actually doesn't. If you are just writing things, or maybe putting out your client experiences, or maybe sharing your stories, which could have your heart in it. But at the same time, I want to say that LinkedIn as a platform needs to be used very strategically when it comes to building that magnetic messaging. And that is why you definitely need a helping hand when it comes to having your stories written in a way that your target audience actually resonates with you. And to give you a very solid example of my own, is that, I could say that, I started using LinkedIn 8 years back. Okay, so I have 8 years of experience of using LinkedIn. But how I put it is, I say that I started using LinkedIn as a platform when personal branding as a term didn't even exist. Now I'm saying the same thing in both the ways, right? But what leaves more impact is the second one, and very subtly, very authoritatively, maybe I am psychologically telling them that, I am someone who can be trusted as an expert, because my journey started when no one knew personal branding as a term, and it didn't even exist in the world. So, that is the way you plant seeds of, you know uh, trust, or credibility in the minds of people without you saying it. And that is what narrative building is to me. And mostly you are able to do that, when you have powerful stories to share, but you don't know, you struggle to put them all together to create a message that goes to the world, that, this is the person I want to work with, if that
It
makes
makes
sense.
full sense because what I feel you're trying to kind of tell us at the heart of it is you have to show who you are as a human and as a professional, not just what you offer, and act as a, those door to door vacuum cleaner salesmen in the 1950s from the movies, right? That's not gonna help you with creating any connection. But if you share some stories, if you show, the human behind the company that you are building, then I think that helps a lot. So I'm thinking now, with such a big following and a strong brand you've built, what are some misconceptions or myths that you hear about, making it on LinkedIn? So do you feel like you're just getting started, or do you feel like you got there? What is your kind of view on that number of followers that you have and how the relationship that you have on LinkedIn?
All right, that's a really interesting question, because I get this asked a lot. When people come to me and they tell me that, we want to build a big following, maybe 3 lakh followers, 4 lakh followers, and how much time would it take? And, that is the time I ask them, do you need random followers, or do you need community who you can buy, or sorry, who you can sell to? Do you need people who are just, who can be bought with bots, or do you need people who actually trust you with every piece of content that goes and engage with you? So, and it's pretty ironical, because, for me, LinkedIn has never been a number game. uh, to be honest, people even have 2 lakh, 3 lakh followers, even 4 lakh, 5 lakh followers. But it's not about these numbers. I think it's more about the community which you can leverage, because you could have just 50,000 followers and still have, still be making more money than someone who has maybe 5 lakh, 6 lakh followers. Because, it's interesting, because Grant Cardone, who's one of my, I would say, someone I really adore for everything he has to offer as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. So, according to me, if you have 50,000 followers versus, 50 lakh rupees in your bank account, you definitely would want to value those 50,000 highly targeted followers, because they are your key to making more than 50 lakhs. And, that has been my key to building LinkedIn all this while, all these 8 years. And, you know, just building a community that I can trust blindly. And, all these people who are there, are actually the ones who are very targeted, and, they actually are my buyers. So that is what makes all the difference, if that answers your
It
question.
fully does. And I do feel like like you said, if you choose between the money or the number of followers or a community, let's say, it's always better to have a community because you are what you're kind of selling. And I'm not talking about somebody's gonna pay for services or products you offer. I'm talking about people are buying into you as a person, and you can then change tracks, you can offer something else, you can develop yourself in some other ways, but people are going to be loyal to you. And I feel that with the biggest entrepreneurs that I follow, I maybe not even always know all of their companies, to be honest. The entrepreneurs that I follow for their personal brand, I wouldn't know some things that they did other than some things that are most famous for. Not always. There is not always a situation where I purchase all of their stuff. Sometimes with somebody, I just read their newsletter, and then a few years later, I purchase something or take their service. So just like you said, it's this loyalty and trust building because you're subscribing to the mind of the person. You're trying to evolve with them. You're trying to learn. You're trying to replicate that. And this is me just like from the view of an entrepreneur looking at that, not just somebody who's trying personal branding, but as somebody who has been listening to podcasts for years and reading those materials, basically sometimes takes me a few years to even purchase something from them. So how do you process that? What's your thoughts on that?
Right. I would say that, it's about being in that top 1% in the minds of people when they think of your services. So, whatever you are selling, if you are in that top 1%, in front of your target audience, they are going to come to you for everything you have been doing. And it's crazy because it's it's those people sometimes who are not commenting on your post, they are not engaging, but they are watching you. And that should be the motivation to get started on LinkedIn, I guess, that your tribe is watching you, they are there even if they are not engaging. Because all these busy people, these executives, these entrepreneurs who you might want to work with, they are seeing what you are doing. They might not have the time to engage with all the posts you are doing, but you would be amazed at the kind of credibility you are building with every piece of content going out there, which adds to your network, right? So I definitely suggest that being consistent is important to some extent, with all the quality that you can bring in with the kind of posts you do. So yeah, that's all.
So let's turn that into something practical. Let's say you've been doing that for years, you post, but how do you turn that content into inbound leads? What would be the steps? What were the steps for you? How do you get that client, and how do you not jump into a DM and be salesy and needy about it? What do you suggest to our audience?
All right. So the inbound approach to it is, doing newsletters, which have been working amazingly well for me and my clients. Some of them are even ranking on Google within 10 days of them going live. And I will tell you exactly the steps which I follow to, make them more impactful. The first thing is that, every time you do a newsletter, your target audience, your connections are going to get a request. Your subscribers are going to get a request. Unlike a social media post or unlike a post you do on LinkedIn, uh, because sometimes people are not maybe seeing your content at the time you post, or anything could happen. But with the LinkedIn newsletter, you get that opportunity to at least have your name popped up in their notifications. The second thing is that if they are written very strategically, they are highly detailed comprehensive pieces of content filled with statistics, filled with case studies, filled with a lot of information covering the topic extremely in a detailed way. then you have opened up a gateway of opportunities, I would say, because every time you do a newsletter, you get peep into the number of people who visited your profile after they read that newsletter. You get a statistic for open rates, you get a statistic of the members you could reach, everything. And it's just like doing blogs on your website, and they even rank on Google for certain keywords which you might want to position yourself as. And some of my newsletters are actually ranking on Google for certain keywords because they were written in such a way that they even surpassed Forbes articles. So I would say they hold a great potential. What you could be doing is maybe adding your link to a landing page very subtly, in some of the longish pieces you are writing, so people can book directly with you. Because these these LinkedIn newsletters are also ranking on Google, so if people click on them, they are redirected to your profile, and they can also reach out to you through there. So it's crazy, the power of writing LinkedIn newsletters. And that is what I would say is the inbound method of lately, which is working very well for me, apart from all the posts I'm doing, and many people connecting with me, and the impressions I'm generating, and referrals, and all of that. My whole business is built through LinkedIn. you know I got a chance to work with business partner of Grant Cardone, the billionaire. A dream come true for an Indian, because of how I could leverage LinkedIn in a way that would work for me, right? So all of that. And then the outbound method is definitely having the right kind of conversations with your prospects. Now that's very interesting, because 99% of the people are mostly automating stuff, but how we do it is totally different. Because we pick up just 100 to 150 dream clients, your ideal clients, and we have conversations with them which are highly personalized, and we adapt to the tone and style, basis what these people want. Is it witty conversations, is it funny conversations, what exactly are they into? And these are not VAs handling these conversations, because the end goal is to build that relationship with them over the next 3 months, to book the calendar for the clients, for the prospects. And no strategy can beat that, because it is very personalized. It is exactly according to I would say it's not even strategic, because conversations are free flowing, but at the same time we are diving deep into client psychology before selling them something. So after 3 months they are pretty comfortable with everything, and then when they book the call, then it's more effective. And it the closing rate is even better for the clients. So that is the process we follow, and I would say no one in the world is doing this, because it's more time taking, it's more tiring, it's more hard work. And just than setting up a email system and sending out cold emails to 10,000, 20,000 people, and paying mindless 5K to 10K dollars. I think this approach works better, and it has amazing conversion rates as well for many of my clients.
So, I remember when I started working in with NGOs, and I started reading about fundraising. And the more I was going through university, and up until the point where I started my company, most of the sales gurus would always say, send the cold emails, pick up the phone, put your foot in the door with your approach and all of that. And that's very outdated now. I do still feel that cold emailing has its purposes, but when it's not automated and robotic, when it's also personalized. So that then, removes you from the 10,000, 15,000 emails sent in a month to gradually lower. But I think that forming relationships on LinkedIn gives you few direction, not just the potential client, but also collaborators, referrals, guests on podcasts such as you and me, how we connected, basically. So, what does it mean when you say build a relationship? Are we talking about, just having a conversation, offering them a lead magnet, or inviting them to a virtual coffee, or sending them a piece of content? Could you unpack how you build a relationship?
Yes. And I will tell you the exact process we follow. So, when we have a prospect, a dream prospect, out of those 150, and we follow this process for all the 150 people for the first message, that, maybe they have done a recent webinar, maybe they have spoken on a stage, maybe they have had their recent blog, anything, and to make the process more seamless, we use ChatGPT. We would tell ChatGPT to summarize that in maybe 5 to 6 lines. Now we have the gist of what they have done, okay, which is very recent. Now we give that a very, very personal touch, adding our opinions to what it would feel like to them, and narrating it with a personal story. Maybe, mind you, that before we send these messages, we have 3 4 calls which are very detailed, where we understand everything about the client, all the breakdown, because we want to send the right information. We want these messages to be highly accurate, right? So, when we are adding these with our personal narratives and everything, the person is likely to accept your request. They are more likely to, if you say, I would like to connect with you, versus you put a message like this, or versus, you give them a taste of you having researched about them, not in a chat gpt way but a full way, is a total game changer. Not many people do it because it's a lot of hard work, and they would set the automations, and the same message would go to, maybe 100 200 people a day. But this approach actually shows them that you are taking the first step to building a relationship from the very first message, and that makes all the difference. Now they are going to reply something, and that is how the conversation starts. And it doesn't have to be a conversation we are talking every day in 3 months. No, that's not how it is. But you are being in their mind, in these 3 months. Maybe they are posting something, maybe you are, just giving them suggestions on something they did. So, you're building that relationship, and you are making it very clear to them that you are not selling them something, because if you do that, they are going to run away. And after 3 months, they're very comfortable with you. 3 to 6 months, but mostly 3 months is the cycle. They're very comfortable working, wanting to get on a call with you. And that is when you speak, and if you are coming from a place of authority, and you can explain your offers better and do all of that, they are more likely to buy everything you have to sell, rather than cold calling, setting up your sales systems, having virtual assistants do that, then your sales guy taking over. All that maybe helps, after you have built your personal brand to some extent. Teams, team scale, I'm not saying you don't have to scale with all these systems, but initially, this is the process that works out really well. Even if you have a team do that, maybe this is the process they could follow, so that it gives a very personalized experience to your clients. Because honestly, LinkedIn is a lot of professional platform. It's uh, really a place where you can connect with your target audience, unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram. So this is what I do, and this is what I highly suggest: building your outreach systems even better with this approach.
It feels like in order to do that with intention, care and nurture, I would even say, is that you need to be aware of who your clients are. Just like you said, have a list of those dream clients and who you want to work with, but also of your offer. So I think that people usually think they need a website, they need this whole thing set up, they need to be extra professional, they need to have case studies, they need to have portfolios and all of that. And it seems to me that what you're saying is just be yourself, talk about your journey, reach out to people, start conversations while you're building all of that and while you're working on it. You don't have to wait. You don't need to put this in a sales strategy that goes quarterly or has special campaigns at certain times and all of those things that sales teams do. Just make this your daily, weekly routine and work with a professional such as you, basically. So what would you add on
Right.
top of that? Did I got it correctly, or am I missing something?
No, I would just like to add an example which is coming at the top of my mind here. That, I had a client who came to me, and, they told me that someone is guaranteeing them, 50 to 60 appointments in 3 months, okay? And then, after those 3 months were over, they came back to me again, and they told me that, I don't know, but I got this feeling that this person, had impersonated the clients, and they were from different, they were calling from different numbers. And I could not convert even one person. So this is also a business these days, that, where people are guaranteeing you lead gen systems, they are guaranteeing you things that would work, but, there's zero transparency. You don't know how the leads came in, and, all the processes are really blurry, or even if they are, very straightforward, these are the kind of experiences clients have to go through. And, they are happy to spend 3,000, $4,000 for something like this. But, it's strange that they would not want to spend time, where these relationships could go with them a long way at maybe half the cost. So that is the message, I definitely want to, get through this podcast, Laura, that, even you and I could meet, because we were, a community first, rather than, a host and someone who is just having to be a part of the show, maybe a participant, right? So it's just about the authenticity, relatability, trust, all of that, that you are going to build with them in a course of next 3 months, before they, hand out their money to you. So yeah.
I fully agree with that, and I completely agree with how we met, communicated, had a call. It felt very natural. It didn't feel like any side was pushing anything. And then we came to the podcast guest invitation, basically, and we're having this really pleasant conversation. So I think that's a perfect example of the steps, basically, because people keep forgetting that behind every profile on LinkedIn is a real person, hopefully. There are bots always, but hopefully they're real people, and you can actually reach out to them and you can actually have a conversation, and they are there because they want to connect. You didn't get in front of their company and wait for them in front of the building. That you're not doing that. You're literally meeting them where they want to be met, right? And people who don't want that, they have options to lock their profile, such as I don't, not me personally, but for example, a person doesn't receive connections, or if you don't know their email, for example, there are mechanisms to kind of gatekeep that there. And if they're not, they want to have a conversation. And what's the worst thing that can happen? They can tell you no. I don't feel that on LinkedIn you're gonna let yourself easily be that rude as you would be in a comment on a social media article or anything like that. So that's kind of my point of view there. And I'm now wondering, for all of that, it takes mental load, because you're building a relationship, you want to remember details, and it takes 3 to 6 months of communication. So do you use any tools for that? A CRM, LinkedIn Sales Navigator? How do you navigate the posting, the all of the mechanism around it? Which tools?
Right. So, we as a team use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's the best way to track all the leads. And to schedule the posts, we make sure that we use Taplio. It is an amazing tool when it comes to scheduling your social media posts. But at the same time, I would say there is no fixed breakdown when it comes to even using Taplio, because we keep experimenting with the time when the client is getting the right traction. uh, I think the worst part when it comes to scheduling is that you know uh, sometimes if you are just setting up the calendar and everything, you take one day and you do everything. But I think it should be reiterated with every 5 posts or every 7 posts, so you can actually see which time the client is getting more traction, instead of setting everything all at once and just putting your hands off the task. So that is something we definitely take care of as well. And all these small things do make a lot of difference when it comes to you know connecting with the right people, getting your content seen at the right time. Yeah, that's all.
So what you're saying is experiment, test it out, don't assume, don't jump on somebody else's advice on social media that's maybe been recycled and misinterpreted and all of that. Look at your audience basically and then make decisions, make informed decisions, right? I'm
Right,
I'm
right.
wondering, with all of that in mind, so posting regularly, making sure your content is authentic, it speaks your story, basically, you're building relationships. How has your presence on LinkedIn directly impacted your visibility in media, invitations to speak, or recognition in the industry?
Right. So I would say the impact has been very much related, because when I started becoming more visible, I started getting more people who wanted to feature me, who wanted my story to be out there, speaking at virtual summits, podcasts. I even got an invitation to speak at Global State Digimacon. I'm a very active speaker here in India, addressing colleges, universities, even got a chance to, cover one of the biggest uh, PM speech here, and it has all happened organically for me, Laura, and that's the best part, because I could just unleash the power of using a platform strategically. And I would say I definitely have the first mover advantage, because I started 8 years back. But at the same time, I want to reiterate uh, that consistency and quality has always played a very instrumental role for my growth on LinkedIn. I had many moments where I wanted to give up, because it was not working for me. Especially the first 10 months when I was posting, though I didn't start with that motive where I wanted to get engagements. But when you are posting, you somewhere have that kind of an expectation. You expect that at least some people are seeing your post and commenting. But staying selfless, just staying tuned to what you are doing at that time is very crucial, because the real growth starts after 3 to 4 years of giving your time to something consistently. And for many, that is the challenge. Personal branding should again be seen as something which you are not expecting a lot from, because building a brand could take years, just like Rome was not built in one day. So that is the key to it. And at the same time, I want to also talk about something very interesting. So I had a very amazing conversation with one of my I was interviewing this lady who was all dressed in purple. So her hair were purple, her lipstick was purple, her nail paint was purple, her dress was purple, everything was purple. And I asked her, why would you dress like that for your interview? And she told me something that would stay with me for the rest of my life, that this is how I define myself, you know. So it always is about the voice you bring in to a platform, whether it's more professional, whether it's more conversational, what you want your audience to identify with when they see your post. If they are seeing your post on LinkedIn and they're seeing your post on Facebook without them having your name, can they identify it's you? That is what personal branding is to me as well. Becoming unforgettable, becoming something that people identify with you without your name into it. And so she told me then, continuing the story, so she told me that when I walk out on the streets, I'm an introvert, so when I walk out on the streets, this is how people recognize me, this is how they see me, and they want to start those first few conversations with me just when I walk out of the door. And that is my way of building my business better. I start those conversations, some turn out to be funny, some turn out to be professional, and that is how I build relationships even when I go to events and summits which are offline. So, yeah, I mean, of all the persons I might have met, you know, she's the one who is always going to stay at the top of my mind for mindset coaching, because she created an impression which no one else could. So, again, I want to say that, personal brand doesn't always have to be limited to LinkedIn, but, you know, it's just one powerful way of starting.
You basically answered my next question, which was how to, stand out and get attention with so many content creators. So this lady chose the purple color and she really made it her own. I'm wondering what would be, how do we get to our purple? What's the formula? How do you figure out what's your purple?
Absolutely. I definitely resonate with that, Laura, because what happens is that people are now chasing building a personal brand versus all the value they can provide. And it's very sad and disappointing because uh, it's like just chasing something which they are not willing to invest their time in. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort to build something which is powerful and which can get you the results for yourself, for everything you are doing. But it does take time, it does take a lot of consistency as well. That is something I definitely want, through your podcast, through this, to the message to go out live, that the key is just to keep going, the key is just to keep sailing through even if things don't turn out for you, and that holds true for life as well.
So I really love what you just said, and I'm wondering. You mentioned and you emphasized the keep going, the keep persisting. That I hear only when people really had dips in their journey. So I'm wondering, in these 8 years, what were your dips, and how did you get to that point where you say, just keep going, it will get there? Basically, how did you pull yourself out of those moments, and what were those moments?
Right. So one of that moment which I can remember is, exactly when I decided to put down my papers, you know, uh, after the job, I decided to quit. And that was the time, when I was having a lot of second thoughts. I was oscillating between, whether I should have done that or not, because though I was building my LinkedIn, and though I was getting my share of clients, everything, but that safety net was going away. And I was in that mind frame where was struggling to, you know, to think that what would happen, if something, just doesn't work. So those were the times, because entrepreneurship back then was even more unconventional, belonging to an Indian family, who does put job on a pedestal, though they wanted me to follow my dreams, no doubt, but I never wanted to let them down as well. And I would just say that, maybe that path which I took is, I'm grateful that I took that decision, because it turned out to be exactly the way I wanted it to be. But yes, I mean, I still have those days, where, I get caught in that net where, I'm comparing myself with other creators. And, this happens with us all the time. But, that endless loop is broken, when I crack a deal by, clients wanting to pay me on call, you know, just by looking at my profile, and don't even want to listen a lot, because they have been seeing my work, and they want to work with me. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant journey for each of us as an entrepreneur.
I definitely can resonate with that, and I feel that Eastern European parents are very similar to Indian parents in that regard, because I was the weird one that decided to pursue this, and I don't have entrepreneurs in my family. So it was, are you sure?
Right.
Try a job first. I
Yes.
jumped after university immediately. I didn't even go for a job, I just jumped.
And for me, it was like, a dream job. So,
Yes.
work location was Google. I was given all the best meals you can imagine, all the delicious food. Then I had the cab facility. My weekends were off. You know, it was a job. My parents would ask, why would you
Yep.
want to quit it? We are with you, but why would you want to do something which is, working for you? And those were the questions I had to first answer myself before, I could to take that leap of faith. But I'm glad I did, and I could then later, build on this, because I think getting out of that mindset comfort zone is very important if you have to start a new journey for yourself. And it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be worth it if you are just consistent at it, and you are, giving to the community in whatever ways you can.
I definitely agree. And that was my first kind of impression when you said, when we spoke first, you said Google as as your first job, basically. And I was very curious about your thought process, because that I imagine that would have been a huge decision on your part. So I have a lot of people around me that are still struggling with that step. So they're still in a secure job, let's say the paycheck is coming every month, but they're not that happy with it, and they are too afraid to jump into entrepreneurship even though they have skills. So what helped you decide? What made you do the leap? How did you reason with yourself?
I loved using LinkedIn as a platform. I started falling in love with it, every time uh, people reached out to me for something. They would not ask for my resume, they would not ask for my website if they wanted to work with me. So that kind of, dopamine high, I would say, I experienced when things started working with for me, and it started happening after 2 years. It's just that, I was more of a, I have always been, someone who is less of a risk taker. So that was the only thing that was holding me back. But at the same time, I would say that, you have to take the risks when you feel, you have some surety of things working for you. It was not out of the black. I was building on this for 2 years. I used to work during my cab journeys. I used to work during the free hours in my office. I used to work after I would be back home. I would work on weekends. I would make sure my time was utilized in the best possible way in these 2 years for me to be able to take that leap of faith even better. Because I think that is the key. And many of us, with a job, it becomes difficult because you see a paycheck coming, so you become very secure, and you don't want to hustle that much. But for me, it was totally the opposite thing, and that is what could give me that courage to quit when I was ready. So yeah.
So basically, test it out if you're unsure, and then dip your toe, and it will kind of pull you in the right direction and help you make a decision, is what I'm hearing there. Yeah.
Right, right,
So
absolutely.
we talked about a lot of good things that LinkedIn gives you, but were there any red flags or uncomfortable collaborations that kind of came out from all of this? Do you kind of know how to recognize any red flags when you are talking to a potential client or a brand partnership through your content or DMs? Did you have those bad experiences, and can you kind of see them in advance?
Yes, absolutely. I would say when you become popular, there are a lot of people who are pulling you down, and you have to sail through those people, right? So initially what I would do and how I would sail through is I would block these people, because that was my way of protecting my energy. But after diving deep into spirituality and having that mindset shift and all of that, I started having that, I would say I became that person who was not bothered by what others have to say about me. And even if they are commenting something negative, even if they are getting in my DMs and pulling me off with everything they are saying, it stopped mattering. And that is the kind of mindset I think I needed to embrace to be able to get there more full-fledgedly. Because as you just mentioned, that many people are fearful of what would happen, what would other people say. We need to understand that everyone has something to say about you. It's you who define your journey, right? So you will have a lot of judgments, opinions. Not every person can resonate with you for everything you are doing, for everything you are posting. But at the same time, that is something which is your thought process. And the right people would respect that. And it's would take the disagreements very respectfully with you. And that is the kind of healthy environment you want to create as a professional you know so yeah, that's all.
That's a really good advice, and I'm sorry you had those experiences, and I hope that there is less and less in the future. I don't understand what makes people take time out of their day to do something like that. So, but like you said, the reaction is what makes you a professional, and not engaging with that. So that's a really good strategy. And one of my last questions for us today is. What advice would you give someone who is under 1,000 followers, even though we agree that this is not a huge number, or we should be focus on the number? But what advice would you give to somebody who wants to turn LinkedIn into a reliable source of leads, credibility, or career growth?
I would just talk about the 3 steps. So the first step would be, I'm sure they would definitely have some warm leads, uh, which they have collected the database. So add at least 20 to 25 of these people in your list, like in your LinkedIn. And by the end of the month, you would have close to 1,000 more people added to your list. Okay, if you are doing the strategy part well, like if you are sending them highly personalized messages, okay, that's a good number. Second thing would be that while you are adding them, make sure you are posting the content as well, so that they can check your profile, they are seeing that you're already doing great work, and all of that, for them to accept that request also. Sometimes it's very important. Then the third thing is starting those conversations again, which we talked about in detail. And the third step is, starting with your newsletters, because they are really, really, really powerful. I have all the case studies to prove what I say. And they are ranking on Google actually. So they get you a lot of traffic for those people who might be searching, certain keywords on Google, and they can be redirected to your LinkedIn profile, and they might want to connect with you after reading your content. So it's all interrelated. So make sure you are using all the three tips to the best of your advantage to get it out there.
Uh, Vagisha, thank you so much for a transparent and thoughtful conversation. I really feel like this hour flew by. I really feel I learned a lot, and I'm so happy that you accepted to be my guest. I think that your journey is very inspiring, so thank you
Pleasure.
so much.
It's a pleasure, Laura. I'm glad I could add something to the community, and yeah, look forward to seeing this episode going live.
Thank you. And to the listeners, I want to say that if you want to learn more about Vagisha, follow her on LinkedIn or check her contributions on USA Today, Medium, Thrive Global, and HackerNoon. You'll find all the links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with a fellow freelancer or content creator who needs a dose of systems wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay consistent, and keep building smart systems. If you enjoy conversations like this, you'll love the Proprium Digital Network. It's a community where digital service founders get tools, templates, weekly insights, and behind the scenes guidance on building systems the right way. If you want to stop building systems alone and start building with support, join us at proprium.agency.